Culture 7. Isaac Newton.
Isaac Newton was born on Christmas Day in 1642. Newton's father died before he was born. His mother got married again, and Newton lived with his grandmother. At the age of 12, he started school, and 7 years later, in 1661, he went to Cambridge University. There, he began to study light and colour. He invented a new type of telescope and was the first person to discover that white light is a mixture of all the colours. After 4 years at Cambridge, the plague arrived in Britain. The plague was a terrible illness that killed thousands of people. The university closed, and Newton returned home. While he was at home, he continued to think and to work. One day, he was sitting under an apple tree in his garden, and an apple fell on his head. Newton said that is how he discovered gravity. It's certainly a good story, but we aren't sure if it is true. He returned to Cambridge in 1667, and 2 years later, he became a professor of mathematics. Starting in 1684, Newton wrote his greatest work, Principia Mathematica, which he published in 1687. Isaac Newton died in October 1727 at the age of 84. His work is still important, nearly 300 years after his death.
Culture 7. Exercises 4 and 5.
Today I am with Simon Humphreys, Professor of Astronomy at a university in London. We are talking about Caroline Herschel, the astronomer. Simon, where was Caroline Herschel born?
She was actually born in Germany, but she spent most of her life in Britain. She was the sister of the astronomer William Herschel. He was born in 1738 and was 12 years older than his sister.
He worked in Britain too?
Yes, he came to Britain when he was 19, and his sister joined him 15 years later in 1752.
And she worked with him, did she?
Yes. At first she did the cooking and cleaning for him, but she soon became his assistant. She wrote down the results of his observations.
He's more famous than she is, isn't he?
Yes, that's because he discovered the planet Uranus in 1782. It was the first planet to be discovered using a telescope, and William built the telescope himself. But Caroline helped him. He couldn't do it without her.
And she discovered a planet too, didn't she?
Not a planet, but she discovered 8 comets and also 14 nebulae.
Can you explain to the listeners what a nebula is?
Yes, a nebula is an enormous cloud of dust between stars. They are sometimes hundreds of light years across, and sometimes stars form inside them.
What else did Caroline do?
She was very good at maths and successfully calculated distances to planets and stars.
That is impressive.
Yes, she received a number of important awards, including the Gold Medal from the Royal Astronomical Society in 1828.
She was quite old by then.
Yes, she was 77. But scientists from all over Europe were still coming to see her to ask for advice. And she lived another 20 years and finally died at the age of 97.
What a fascinating woman.
Yes, especially as in those days it was extremely difficult for women to have a career of their own.
Thank you, Simon.